There you go. Look at you always testing me, always testing me. There is no question that could test our next guest. She is Christina Alexander, as we mentioned. She is in New York City. She was there for all the drama. First things first, paint the picture for us a little bit, Christina. Tell us who you saw, what you saw, and maybe take us to those moments of like real tension. Because I'll tell you what, I was in Russia when they announced that U.S. was going to get this World Cup. I saw some tears. I saw some big hugs from people, some real elation. I wonder what you saw tonight.
Well, I care about your feelings, Sebi, and of course I care about Herc's feelings. But in this sense, it was tension. I know Herc said he wasn't nervous, but there was a lot of nervousness around it. Who's going to get it? Who's going to stay out? The main surprise was Washington, D.C. I know you guys mentioned it, and there was chatter about that. The capital of the United States has been left out, and that was one of the questions for Gianni Infantino, one of course, the main person that we saw today, of course, Victor Motigliano for CONCACAF representation. But more than anything, D.C., and they asked him, and he said, well, there is going to be a fan fest in the National Mall, and of course, all of the cities that were left out, which of course include big cities like Denver, Cincinnati, Nashville, who has the biggest soccer-specific stadium. Of course, you guys know that home opener recently for Nashville Soccer Club. And that was kind of the consolation prize, if that's a good way to maybe name it, that all of the cities that weren't named, including, of course, Edmonton for Canada, were still in some way going to be involved in this historic 2026 World Cup, guys.
Christina, I'm interested because I work in this deportes world as well, and a lot of my colleagues were very interested about opening games, opening ceremonies, because they're like, listen, Mexico is now going to host its third World Cup. It's going to be a historic nation. They got to have the opening game. They got to have the opening ceremonies. Who's going to have it? What's going to happen?
So Gianni Infantino didn't want to confirm where specifically it was going to be, and that I asked him about the final, if it was going to be in Mexico City, because he was so effervescent about the fact that Mexico City was going to be center stage in the Estadio Azteca, and how the fans just really vibrate what soccer is and what World Cup is, and so much history in that place. Pelé, Maradona, to casually name two of the biggest soccer names in history. And he said, well, there are going to be multiple games, so, you know, you can be a little bit calm with that situation, speaking, of course, to the Mexican fans. But he said, I can't confirm there's going to be an opening, multiple openings. So maybe speculating on the fact that there's going to be three, one for the United States, one for Canada, and one for Mexico. This is different, guys. He also said that, of course, with the 48 teams, there's going to be 80 finals. And he said, well, to compare it kind of and to allude or kind of touch on the American fans, it's going to be like hosting 80 Super Bowls.
I love that. 80 Super Bowls. Man, we are never going to run out of content when it comes to the 2026 World Cup. It's fascinating stuff. So now that we know where the games will be played, the next question is, where will the big games be played? There's some massive stadiums if you look at this list. Christina, what was the buzz there in New York? Like, who might get some semifinals? Who might get the final?
I mean, when you talk about buzz, when you talk about a city that never sleeps, of course, it's New York City. And alluding to maybe it could be New York, maybe it could be, of course, New York, New Jersey in that joint candidacy. Of course, one of the confirmed, which would have been weird, right? The announcement in New York City, and you're not going to have New York or New Jersey as one of the official host cities. But it could be, you know, talk about MetLife possibly, which was kind of the buzz around that as well. The final, he mentioned Mexico City, he mentioned Atlanta, but then I think Infantino kind of knew what he was doing. He's like, maybe I'm giving too much away. He mentioned LA, he mentioned Atlanta, he mentioned Dallas, and he was like, of course I have to mention all of the other candidates. The 16 candidates in total are part of that list, which of course we know was going to be his response. Hey, where's the final going to be played? Well, they're your 16 candidates if you want to choose one to maybe be your favorite. But to answer your question, nothing official, guys. And he said with time, that's what they're going to decide. And the decision also, which was really interesting, he said that they finalized this list last night. So anything could change in a New York minute.
All right, hey, before we let you go, forget what Infantino says. What do you think? Where would you want the World Cup final to be played? You can pick any of the cities.
Estadio Azteca. Why not? I mean, it's historic already to have Mexico there for the third time in their history. We've already seen two amazing finals in 1970 and 1986. Why not make it for 2026, 40 years later?
Wow, what a special story that would be. You mentioned the 80 Super Bowls, 60 of them to be played in the United States, 10 of them to be played in Canada, 10 of them to be played in Mexico. There she is, Christina Alexander, joining us from New York City. Thanks as always for the time.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.